Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
And welcome back, everyone, to The Wilder Ride, Getting Wilder by the Minute, a podcast where we break down and celebrate the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. I'm your host, Alan Sanders.
And I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
And our guest today is, again, Matt Gray. Matt, thanks for being able to join us again.
Back again like a bad STD. Flaring up just for you guys. Let's go.
Well, we've set the tone for today, haven't we, folks?
And then we want to say thank you to the guys from Gutterballs to TV.
Oh, that's a bad segue.
Okay, so Matt, outside of flaring up, what is it that you do?
Unfortunately, I work sort of like in law. I help people. This is bad. This is not good. I work at a background screening company, and
yes, he does background checks on people.
Yeah, I'm not the guy I suppose you would want
He
making
looks
sure
for
you're
whether or not you have flare-ups.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
If you've had any engagement with the law that may be negative to a company looking to hire you. Mm-hmm. So you really do a lot of your company does like background screening and checks on people if they're going to look to hire, especially in sensitive positions or maybe trust them with things.
But who hasn't had a DUI? Let's be honest. I usually let those slide.
Wait, I can say I haven't. Knock on wood. No,
well,
I'd say 2 of the 3 of us in this room haven't, Matt. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Anyway, we should move on.
Glad you're here.
No wonder you couldn't get the car in the parking spot this morning.
I was watching him back in and out. I'm like, what's going on?
The general public didn't need to know that.
Sure,
the general public may find themselves parking next to you one day, and then
that's true.
You can make my favorite club I put out on Facebook, the Ass Hat Parking Job of the Day.
I have seen that, actually. I have seen that.
Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. We are now in the midst of Young Frankenstein. We actually get to meet Gene Wilder's character, and he gives us all a huge correction as to what his name, or how he believes his name is supposed to be pronounced, because the medical student who steps up and says, "I've got a question for you, Dr. Frankenstein," and he immediately, Walt, says...
That's Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. Very much wants to have a different pronunciation as opposed to the family name. And the kid goes on to say, well, aren't you, part of the same line? Isn't your grandfather the Victor Frankenstein? And I was like, he's looking off to the side like, oh my God, why do I got to put up with this?
Well, he's giving the I'm not crazy body language. He's really, Dr. Frankenstein does everything he can right off the bat to get as far away from the Frankenstein legacy as he can.
Now, fun fact. The actor here, playing the medical student, Danny Goldman, the actor name. I grew up listening to this guy a lot on Saturday mornings.
Yes, he was the voice of Brainy Smurf. But he also has a long list of other things.
Other credits, but that was, when I looked him up, that was one of the biggest credits he was known for, is for the long-running voice of, "Hey, Papa Smurf, it's Brainy. Aren't we supposed to be doing the work? Come on, guys. Stop playing around, Papa Smurf. Put me in charge."
Yeah, I was a little old for the Smurfs. Matt, did you watch the Smurfs growing up?
I've seen it way as a kid, but not recently.
Yeah, but it's just funny that this is the guy who is behind Brainy Smurf. That is it's really crazy.
But what's funny is he stands up with the eyeglasses, and now I can't help but see Brainy Smurf every time this guy talks.
He looks like he would be Brainy Smurf.
It's like they drew Brainy Smurf out of this guy's face.
He's hilarious. But, he was also in MASH, the movie MASH. He played in a couple episodes of Chico and the Man. He was on Happy Days. And he is the second actor that we know of in this film who was in Linda Lovelace for President. So I don't know what the connection is here. Maybe we'll find that out as we go. But,
Linda Lovelace for
Danny
President.
Goldman. I don't think we're going to recommend that movie.
The original Deep Throat, and we don't mean the people who got Nixon in trouble.
No, we do not. So, other than Linda Lovelace for President, Danny Goldman's an accomplished actor.
A lot of voiceover work. Not only on screen, but a lot of voiceover work. And actually, if you go through the cast list, you'll be surprised, but a lot of them, including even Inspector Kemp, who we'll meet later, did a lot of voiceovers for cartoons.
Yeah, and this was the time when those jobs were really blowing up. I mean, you had Hanna-Barbera, you had the Warner Brothers.
This is the time of Saturday morning cartoons. It's like the heyday,
right.
the 70s and into the 80s of watching, Looney Tunes, the Merry Melodies, watching Roadrunner and Coyote and all the things that I know I grew up with every Saturday morning until it slowly evolved into adding things like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I watched from basically 6:30 in the morning until the live action stuff came on. The minute I started hearing about Don Cornelius's Soul Train, I was like, I'm turning it off.
Yep.
Or American Bandstand, I'm done. Time to go outside.
Out. Yep. Yeah, that was kind of the mark in the sand for us.
Matt, this time you get a chance to see this kid stand up and ask a question. And the very first time that we get a different pronunciation, because when you saw the title, Young Frankenstein, everyone knows the name Frankenstein. We know Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. We know the Boris Karloff movie. It's been made dozens of times as remakes. Were you taken off guard with how Gene Wilder wanted you to pronounce his name?
Yes, indeed. I was not expecting that, but it's pretty clear that he wants to distance himself from like Walt said, the family legacy. But yeah, I was fully expecting him to say, "Yes, it's me, Dr. Frankenstein."
Careful grabbing the mic that much because I just want to make mic noises. Walt just slaps tables and mics and stuff.
Yeah, I make it really tough on him.
You make the editing really fun. When he starts questioning him about his family and the history, what was your first thought when you see Gene Wilder having to deal with, here it comes again? You get the sense, obviously, this is not the first time.
That doesn't surprise me. I found this person very condescending and annoying. And that's not to the fault of the actor. I suppose that's his job, but I feel like I would have slapped him if I was in the same class as him, and people would have applauded me for it. But yeah, I didn't like his character.
He does come across a little smarmy, but aren't you the Victor Frankenstein?
That's exactly what I was going to reference.
Whose grandfather? It's like,
the way he says, "Aren't you?" It's just, ooh, you're looking for a backhand, boy.
Well, I didn't think about it until later on, until I saw it again in college. But I was like, does he not want to pass this class?
Right? Who challenges the professor this way?
You really want to be that big a jerk to your professor?
I've never been one to advocate. I've got kids in college right now, and I said, it's going to be tough. You're going to run into those professors who are going to have a particular bent, and you're going to have to figure out is this professor going to be okay with you writing with your own particular views, or are you going to have to kind of bend your views so you can get the good grade?
Right. Obviously, the student, as he's titled here, Danny Goldman, doesn't care. He just wants to kind of prod the beast a little bit and really stick it to Dr. Frankenstein.
We talked about this last minute. This is where we actually see him dip his hands into a water bowl that's obviously on his desk to clean the chalk dust off his hands. Now, what I think is really cool in this minute is the kid does get convinced to turn it around and stop dealing with the history of Frankenstein and ask an actual question.
Yes, he does.
He's having a hard time with understanding the difference between voluntary reflexes and involuntary for the reflex actions, and which is really cool. As he asks the question, it's actually written on the board above Gene Wilder's shoulder. That's obviously what they're talking about, motor impulses, voluntary versus reflexive. And he makes a comment saying, as we get toward the end of the minute, that's perfect because we have a live demonstration set for today.
Well, and isn't it kind of odd? I mean, this is the 70s. I didn't go through school in the 70s, at least not secondary education, but doesn't that seem like a really basic question for somebody in the 70s to not know the answer to if they're in med school?
I would think. I mean, because that to me is something I learned in kind of like middle school biology.
Yeah, I passed that in middle school or high school. I guess this is to me kind of the coffin in the living room for you. That seems like a really basic question.
Not everything in this movie is meant to be realistic.
Well, this is true. Wait, what?
It's not based off a true story.
It's not?
I'm not
We need another breaking news alert.
This isn't a documentary?
Yeah.
I thought this was a documentary.
So, Matt, funny you should say that. Let's talk about that. When you were watching the movie, because a 1974 audience probably would have thought of this as, okay, that's your typical lecture that you'd expect of that day. That's obviously 44 years ago now from when that came out. When you were watching it, what was your thought? Were you thinking, okay, this sounds like a bunch of jargon, or did it feel real? Or
I mean, it felt real enough because, I mean, obviously, like you said, the motor impulses are real, but I learned it in middle school. I guess the only, but it'll be next episode that you guys talk about it, the, like the clamp on the back of the neck and stuff.
Yes, Mr. Hilltop.
Reverend Johnson.
Reverend Johnson.
We can't keep giving away stuff coming up in the next minute.
I know.
We're so excited about what's coming up. Yeah.
This is such a great scene, though. This whole scene is just amazing.
So we're diving our way through here, minute number 7, and Brainy Smurf has some questions, and we're going to see if we can get them answered. Did you ever? And I'm going to have a doctor. I'm going to bring a doctor in tomorrow. I want to find out if some of this stuff actually happens because you've never went to med school. Did you know anybody who went to med school?
I've got a couple of friends who are doctors.
Did you ever ask them, say, do we have live demonstrations in class?
Oddly, I did talk to a friend of mine who's a nurse, and this is years ago, and it wasn't in the context of this movie, but she said that, I mean, they do cadaver work, and they do have...
Well, they're nearly bringing a cadaver.
They nearly, yeah, he is close, and we'll find out more about that in the next minute. But yeah, she said they do actually come to a point where they're drawing blood from live people, and this is probably not an uncommon thing for a lecture. Now, they probably don't knee them in the testicles, but
Wait, spoiler!
I would hope not.
You didn't go to the right school.
That's the problem.
Or maybe she did go to the right school.
You got to go to more than a 2-year university for that full medical degree, or stay in country.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's just so much in this. This is such a great minute.
It doesn't work so well getting your degree down in Peru.
No.
Excuse me,
Yeah, it gets a little weird sometimes.
I went to Bolivia.
Those
I am
good
now
old
qualified for operations.
Brazilian medical degrees. Gotta love them.
What did you practice on? The game, Operation. That's what we did. I was top of my class.
Yeah, that's how they learned to pull the bone out of the leg
Exactly.
with tongs.
When are you ever going to do that? Take a bone out of the leg? Isn't it you have to mend the bone?
I would think so. I mean, I'm
That
not
game always bothered me.
again, I'm not a doctor.
Having a heart attack, remove the heart. Wait, don't you still need
Wait,
that?
that should stay in. I would think.
I want to fix the heart, not take it out.
I mean, I'm just going to take a shot in the dark here. You wouldn't actually take it out.
Did you ever play Operation?
Oh,
Was
I
that a
played
game?
Operation. Also, I don't think during medical operations, if you touch the sides of a man's skin, it's like, a big buzzer goes off and like, you can't do that, doctor.
Only if you're operating on Rudolph. Apparently that
Oh.
does happen.
Well, his nose will, let you
It
know.
lights up. Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
you get that like the radio frequency sounder of Rudolph's nose. Why did Rudolph's nose do that?
I have no idea.
I get it glowing, but why did it make it sound like you were trying to tune in some like really upper band radio station?
I just assumed it was radioactive.
maybe that they're not up north. They may be on one of those atolls out in the South Pacific. That explains a whole lot.
It really does. A lot of experimentation there. So.
And that gets us back to this, where we're getting ready for a live experiment
We do.
in the classroom.
And it's interesting to look at the way they set Dr. Frankenstein here. Gene is well put together. He's got a nice suit, nice lab coat. His hair's mostly combed.
It's Gene Wilder.
It's Gene Wilder as much as, he can put himself together. And later on in the movie, it really, you do see the contrast as he kind of comes apart as he becomes Dr. Frankenstein.
I swear, the scene where he cuts his eyes off to the side when he's hearing this kid talk about, but aren't you the Frankenstein that aren't you? And then he's just like, oh, God.
Not again.
And then finally he's like, all right.
Yeah. And you can just see him pull himself back in. It really you just want to laugh at this whole scene because you know it's coming.
Well, I do like how he does try to pull the class back in because, this has got to feel like a moment when you're being challenged in front of a bunch of students, and he calls his family heir cuckoo. And everyone cracks up at it. So he's really doing his best to try to disarm the conversation, get away from it, and the kid, to his credit, does at least ask a question to advance the story. So
well, and the student really, the question really is an assault on him professionally. It's an assault on his family heritage. It's an assault on
He's a model
everything
student.
he's trying. a model student. Yeah,
Apparently
Insulting
not
the
a lot's
professor
changed.
to a very
Not-
personal degree.
Not much.
All right, Matt, anything else you want to mention about this particular minute?
The science is there. The science is real, and good on them.
Yeah, they really did their
They
research.
really did the research with motor impulses.
All right. Well, with insights like that, can we put you on call? Because I think I want to get you back here before the end of the week.
If the audience decides they still want me, or even if they don't, I'll probably come back.
You're kind of good for a Friday, kind of a slacker, kind of a dressed down day. That might be a good fit for you.
Very describing my love life almost. And so was the last episode because I think we said it was an uneventful 60 seconds. That sounds very familiar for me.
It's the title
That's
of your
bedroom talk for me, yeah.
It's the autobiography.
Exactly.
An uneventful
60 seconds. Matt's love life. Leave me good reviews, please.
Ladies, how can you resist?
It's a great book
It
to
only
get for
took a minute at a
Valentine's.
time.
Perfect.
I can't even breathe right now. An uneventful 60 seconds. A journey into the love life of Matt Gray.
This is quickly becoming like one of those old 80s, 90s dating tapes.
Well, yes, it will be 1 minute and uneventful,
My name is Matt. You'll have 60 seconds of disappointment.
but there will be cab fare, so it's fine.
Cab fare.
I could call an Uber if you'd like.
Okay. All right, well, let's give a thank you again as we wind up our minute number 7.
Feels like an hour.
I want to say a special thank you to the guys Adam and Brad from Gutterballs.tv who kind of first analyzed a movie a minute at a time, and really the guys Pete and Alex of the Star Wars Minute, which you can find online, StarWarsMinute.com, who created the daily format that now if you go to moviesbyminutes.com, you'll see a whole list of folks doing exactly what we're doing, Walt, trying to break down a favorite movie or franchise 1 minute at a time.
I would say that they probably are going to listen to this minute and wonder what in the heck we're doing here. But
if you come in the middle of any of these minutes, you're probably not going to have any idea what we're
really
talking
scratching
about.
your head. But we also want to take a second to thank our friends who've gone out and liked us on Facebook and are following us there, folks who are following us on Twitter, and the folks who've gone on iTunes and given us a 5-star rating. I'm just blown away by the folks who are getting involved in our show here, and we want to thank you for doing that. If you do like what you are hearing and you haven't had the opportunity, we would encourage you to go out to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating if you like us, make a comment so that your vote is tallied, and also you can find us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/thewilderride.
And don't forget, tell people that you can listen to this and all of your typical locations, not just iTunes. We're on Google Play, we're on Stitcher, we're on TuneIn Radio, and there's no reason you cannot get us, subscribe to us, and follow us. Binge listen if you want. You know, some people want to just download them all during the week, listen on the weekend. However you listen, don't care, as long as you're listening.
Well, and it's really getting to a point it's hard to get away from us. We're everywhere.
Isn't that how we started the episode?
That is exactly how we started.
Hey, it's me again.
For your weekly flare-up, don't forget to subscribe
hard
to
to
The
get away
Wilder
of.
Ride, where we get wilder by the minute.
Yes, we do.
And that's our website as well, thewilderride.com. With that said, we'll be back tomorrow. We're expecting to have a doctor, an actual physician, in studio to help us try to figure out exactly what happens during those long lectures in medical school.
I'm sure it is going to be very insightful.
Until tomorrow, hey, signing off for the Smurfs, this is Brainy, and I want you to know Papa put me in charge.
I don't even know where to go with that.
I'm in charge.
Say-
I got the glasses.
In
I've
the
got
best
the conch.
in the best Brainy Smurf, say Frankenstein.
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 No, Papa Smurf said it's Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein said it's Dr. Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.